Hey guys, tonight we're going to slow down a little, quiet the world around us, and gently turn our gaze inward. Imagine just for a moment that you've had a long day. The sun has set, the air is cool, and you're finally in a space that feels entirely your own. Perhaps you're lying in bed, the sheets soft against your skin, or maybe you're on a comfortable chair, watching the last colors of the sky fade from your window. Your body is a universe. You inhabit a complex, ancient landscape you traverse every single day without a second thought. But what if a tiny, silent, and entirely alien traveler made its way into that world? What if a seed, a perfect little capsule of potential, found itself not in the soft, dark earth, but within the warm, living soil of your own body? A whimsical, almost fairy tale thought, I know. But let's be honest, you'd probably not survive it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like it, I'd love to know where you are right now in this quiet moment and what time it is for you. Now, with a deep breath, let's begin our journey into this strange, beautiful, and deeply unsettling possibility. A seed is not just a thing. It is a whisper of an entire future. It is a promise, a blueprint, and a stubborn, silent ambition, all wrapped within a hard, unassuming shell. From a cosmic perspective, a seed is a marvel of engineering, a tiny ship designed to brave the elements, to endure and to wait. In its very essence, a seed is an echo of eternity, a fragment of life prepared to outlast its parent. Think of the incredible diversity of seeds. The minuscule windswept dandelion seed, a feathery parachute, gliding on the breeze, its sole purpose to find a patch of welcoming ground. The massive, heavy coconut, floating on ocean currents for months, a self-contained island of life in search of a new shore. The apple seed tucked away in the heart of a crisp, sweet fruit, a delicious bribe to an unsuspecting animal, whose digestive journey will eventually lead to a new home for the seed. Every single one is a masterpiece of passive design, a patient architect of a future forest or garden. In contrast, our bodies are not passive. Our bodies are a theater of constant dynamic action. They are a bustling, vibrant city of cells, each with a specific role. From the moment we are conceived, our cells are engaged in an epic, choreographed dance, dividing, specializing, and organizing themselves into the magnificent, intricate structure that is you. Consider the sheer scale of it. Trillions of cells all working together in perfect, if not sometimes flawed, harmony. We have cells that are responsible for the quiet, rhythmic beat of our hearts, others that are the diligent architects of our bones, and still others that serve as the messengers of our nervous system, racing along a vast electrical network to deliver information. This is the stage upon which our story unfolds tonight. A seed, an ancient patient wanderer, and a body, a humming complex cosmos. What happens when these two worlds collide? What happens when a seed's ancient patient ambition is awakened not by the sun, the rain, and the rich giving earth, but by the warmth, moisture, and unsuspecting biological machinery of our own internal world? This raises a fascinating and rather fundamental question about the very nature of life. We are so used to the idea of a plant growing in the earth and an animal, us, living within its own body, its own skin. The lines feel so clear, so absolute. But what if those lines are not as solid as we imagine? We often think of our bodies as separate, as an isolated kingdom. But in truth, we are an ecosystem. Our skin is a home to countless microorganisms. Our gut, a bustling metropolis of bacteria and other tiny life forms that we couldn't possibly survive without. We are a walking, talking, breathing world unto ourselves, a biological planet. The question is, can we be home to something so fundamentally different from ourselves? A plant, a life form that makes its own food, that reaches for light, that is rooted and still. Can it share a space with a life form that must consume others to live? That moves and that is driven by a restless, wandering mind. The first challenge, of course, would be the most obvious one. The stomach. A brutal, unforgiving crucible of acid and enzymes, designed to dismantle anything that enters it. The very idea of a delicate seed surviving this is almost laughable, but some seeds are astonishingly resilient. They have evolved over millennia to survive the digestive tracts of animals, their hard coats and chemical compositions designed to protect their precious cargo. Think of the coffee bean. It's not a bean at all, but a seed. And for a long time, the most expensive coffee in the world, Kopi Luwak, was made from beans that had passed through the digestive system of an Asian palm civet, a small cat-like creature. The fermentation and enzymatic action inside the civet's stomach actually changes the flavor of the bean. This is a real-world example of a seed's incredible ability to withstand a hostile internal environment. But this is not a one-way street. The civet's digestive system is evolved to process these beans. Our stomach, however, is not. The acidity, the powerful muscular contractions, known as peristalsis, that churn and mix our food, and the specific enzymes we produce, all would be working in concert to break down this tiny intruder. The seed would be facing a battle on a molecular level. Its hard outer coat, the testa, is its primary defense. This coat is often a complex, multi-layered structure of cellulose and lignin, a substance that gives wood its rigidity. It's tough, it's waterproof, and it's meant to protect the delicate embryo inside from physical damage and dehydration. But how long can it withstand a constant bath of hydrochloric acid? The answer to that is what separates a mere journey through the gut from a true biological colonization. For our story to continue, this seed, this little ship of life, must not just pass through. It must somehow, against all odds, find a way to land, to anchor, and to begin its silent, inexorable work. The simple, humble act of swallowing a piece of fruit could, in this impossible scenario, become the genesis of a profoundly different kind of existence. Our bodies possess an elegant, almost poetic sense of order. Everything has a place, a purpose, a rhythm. The delicate dance of our hormones, the precise cascade of chemical signals that allow us to think, feel, and move. This is a system built over millions of years of evolution, a finely tuned machine that balances 1,000 different processes at once. And yet this entire system is predicated on the assumption that nothing will ever try to build a home inside it. It assumes that foreign objects will be broken down, neutralized, or expelled. It doesn't have a protocol for a foreign life form deciding to set up shop. This lack of a protocol, this blind spot in our biological code, is the very crack that our story exploits. Imagine the seed having somehow survived the initial chemical onslaught of the stomach. Perhaps it was a particularly hardy seed, or perhaps it was a moment of weakness for our digestive system. It continues its journey through the small intestine, a long-coiled and incredibly important organ where most of our nutrient absorption occurs. The small intestine is a lush, warm, and nutrient-rich environment. It is here that the body absorbs the very building blocks of life: sugars, fats, proteins, vitamins. It's a biological buffet, a feast of molecular parts. And what does a seed need to sprout? It needs warmth, it needs water, and it needs nutrients. The small intestine provides all three in abundance. This is where the quiet ambition of the seed begins to stir. The hard testa, weakened by the stomach acid, might begin to crack. Water seeps in, awakening the dormant life within. The embryo, a microscopic promise of a plant, starts to metabolize its stored energy. The slow, silent process of germination has begun. This is a concept known in biology as seed dormancy, and it's a truly remarkable thing. It's the plant's way of waiting for the perfect moment. It is a state of suspended animation, a pause button on life. Seeds can remain dormant for years, even centuries, waiting for the right conditions. The oldest viable seed ever germinated was a date palm seed that was over 2,000 years old, found in an archaeological dig in Israel. It was a silent testament to the patience and resilience of life. This seed in our story finds its ideal conditions not in a desert cave, but within the dark, winding corridors of the human intestine. It's a surreal, almost blasphemous idea life beginning where life is meant to be consumed. But the body is not just a passive garden bed. As the seed begins to stir, our body's ancient defenses would surely be alerted. We have an army of tiny, tireless soldiers patrolling our bloodstream, our lymphatic system, and our tissues. This is the immune system, a marvel of biological warfare. It is a complex hierarchical organization of cells designed to identify and destroy anything that doesn't belong. The moment a cell starts to behave in a way it shouldn't, whether it's a virus-infected cell, a cancerous cell, or a foreign object, the immune system is supposed to spring into action. We can picture these immune cells, the white blood cells, the macrophages, the lymphocytes as ancient sentinels standing watch on the walls of our cellular kingdom. They would see this tiny seed as a foreign object, an intruder. They would swarm it, trying to break it down to consume it, to neutralize it. This would be a battle fought on a microscopic scale, a war between the seed's ancient patient ambition and the body's vigilant dynamic defenses. The outcome of this battle would determine everything, and this is where our story truly begins to diverge from reality, where the philosophical questions start to bloom. If the seed, this tiny vessel of a different kind of life, were to win this battle, what would that mean? It would mean that a part of us, a fundamental mechanism of our self-preservation, had failed. It would mean that the boundary between me and not me had been breached in the most profound way possible. It would raise a question that physicists and biologists still wonder about when they discuss the nature of identity and consciousness. What truly defines an individual? Is it the collection of cells working in harmony, or is it something more? If a part of that collection is now dedicated to a different purpose, to a foreign blueprint, are we still the same person we were before? The seed, in its silent, relentless growth, is not just changing the body, it is challenging our very definition of what it means to be whole. This is a story about a quiet invasion, yes, but it is also a story about a profound internal reckoning. It's a journey into the garden of the self and a question of what happens when a new, unexpected kind of life begins to grow there. Remember how we talked about the body being a universe, a bustling city of cells? Well, within that city, there's a language, a code that every cell understands and obeys without question. It's the language of life itself, woven into the very fabric of our being. This language is written in our DNA, a spiraling double helix that looks like a delicate twisted ladder. Each rung of that ladder is a pair of chemical bases, adenine with thymine guanine with cytosine, and the sequence of these pairs forms the instructions for everything our bodies are and everything they do. This is our cosmic dance, our cellular instruction manual. From the shape of our nose to the way our brain processes a memory, it's all there encoded in this elegant ancient script. Now a seed has its own book of instructions, its own unique genetic blueprint. It's not written for the human body. It's written for the soil, the sun, and the sky. Its language is about forming roots that burrow deep, about a stem that reaches upward, about leaves that unfurl to capture light. The seed's DNA is a story about a very different kind of life. It's a story about being rooted, about being still, about finding sustenance, not through consumption, but through a silent, patient alchemy. The moment this seed begins to germinate within you, its genetic program, its ancient code, begins to activate. It's like two different operas being performed on the same stage at the same time, each with its own areas, its own rhythm, and its own dramatic arc. The result is not a harmonious duet, but a cacophony of conflicting instructions. One of the core concepts in biology is the idea of gene expression. This is the process by which the information in our DNA is converted into the functional products of lifelike proteins. Think of it as a sculptor reading a blueprint and then creating a statue. Every cell in our body has the same complete blueprint, but only certain parts of it are read at any given time. A skin cell, for example, only reads the part of the code that tells it how to be a skin cell. It ignores the parts that would tell it to be a liver cell or a neuron. This is an incredibly precise and delicate process controlled by a complex network of chemical signals and regulatory proteins. The harmony of our body depends on this controlled, selective reading of our own genetic book. But the seed doesn't have a bookmark for your story. It's opening its own book, and its instructions are about making a plant. The genes of the plant would begin to express themselves, creating new proteins, new enzymes, and new structures that have no place in the human body. This would be a molecular chaos, a biological rebellion. Your cells are receiving signals to do one thing: to absorb nutrients, to fight infection, to maintain homeostasis, while the plant's nascent cells are receiving signals to do something else entirely. The plant's genes would be commanding it to produce auxins, a type of plant hormone that controls growth and development. These are powerful chemical messengers that dictate where a root should grow, where a stem should elongate, and when a leaf should form. These hormones would be entirely foreign to your body, and their introduction would be like throwing a spanner into the finely tuned machinery of your own hormonal and cellular signaling pathways. This raises an interesting question that biologists and philosophers still grapple with. What makes a collection of cells an individual? We think of ourselves as a single organism, a cohesive whole, but we are a colony of cells, a cooperative society. What happens when a new, non-cooperative colony of cells with its own entirely different set of rules starts to grow in our midst? We touched on the immune system in the last section, but let's go a bit deeper. The immune system is a master of identification. It distinguishes between self and non-self with astonishing accuracy. But the plant in its early stages would present a particularly difficult challenge. It's not a virus, it's not a bacteria. It's an organized collection of living cells with its own new set of proteins and carbohydrates. It would be a foreign entity, but one that is complex and self-contained. The immune system would likely mount a massive full-scale attack, a siege on this tiny growing intruder. But what if in this impossible scenario, the seed's biology had some subtle way of evading the full force of the immune system? Think of it this way: a seed has evolved to be eaten. It's part of its journey. And some plants have evolved to produce chemicals that can manipulate the biology of the animals that eat them. We are just beginning to understand the incredible complexity of this relationship. Some plants produce compounds that interfere with animal digestion, while others produce toxins that serve as a defense mechanism. In our story, perhaps, the seed produces some novel compound, a molecular camouflage, that confuses the immune system's sentinels, making it difficult for them to get a clean read on the intruder. The immune cells would be swarming, but they would be fighting a ghost, an enemy they can't quite identify. This wouldn't stop the battle, but it might slow it down, giving the seed precious time to grow and establish itself. The core of our exploration here is the fundamental incompatibility of these two genetic programs. The body is an engine of consumption. The seed is an engine of creation. The body breaks down, the seed builds up. This is a clash of two opposing biological philosophies. The plant's cells would be drawing on the body's resources, the very nutrients you need to live. It would be a silent, profound act of biological vampirism. The plant would begin to synthesize its own organic molecules using the building blocks it is siphoning from your bloodstream, a process entirely foreign to human cells. This is a direct competition for resources. Every gram of glucose, every molecule of iron, every sip of water that goes to the plant is a resource stolen from your own body, from the delicate balance that keeps you alive. This molecular conflict would manifest in increasingly tangible ways. The plant's growth would demand an enormous amount of energy. Your metabolism, the sum of all the chemical processes in your body, would go into overdrive to try and supply these competing demands. You might feel a constant, profound sense of fatigue, an insatiable hunger, as your body fights to nourish two different life forms at once. Your body would be a house with two different families living in it, each with their own rules, their own schedules, and their own needs, all pulling from the same pantry. It's a logistical nightmare on a biological scale. The silent battle being waged at the cellular level is a truly mind-bending concept. It's a war of information. Your DNA is a set of instructions for survival in the animal kingdom. The seed's DNA is a set of instructions for survival in the plant kingdom. And the two are not designed to coexist. The very act of the seed's genes expressing themselves is a rejection of your body's design. It's a biological statement, a quiet, stubborn declaration of a different way of being. This is a profound mystery. We understand the mechanics of DNA, the structure of the helix, the way proteins are synthesized. But the deeper mystery, the one that still eludes us, is the very essence of life itself that sparked that drive to survive and replicate that is encoded in every living thing, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale. And in this story, we see that drive manifest in its most pure and most challenging form. A seed awakened in the dark, asserting its right to exist against an entire living cosmos. We've journeyed into the very heart of the cell, where a silent war of genetic blueprints rages. But before the chaos of a new genetic code could truly take hold, the body would have its first, most powerful line of defense. This is the immune system, and in the grand theater of our body, it is the ancient, vigilant sentinel. For countless millennia, our ancestors survived because of this intricate, tireless army. It is a biological history book filled with the wisdom of every fight our species has ever won against a virus, a bacteria, or a foreign invader. Imagine your body as a medieval walled city. The skin is the outer wall, tough and difficult to breach, the gut lining the respiratory tract. These are the inner gates carefully guarded. But inside the city walls, patrolling the streets, the waterways, and every hidden alleyway are the soldiers of the immune system. They are not a single unified force, but a complex tapestry of specialized units, each with a different role. First, you have the innate immune system, a non-specific rapid response unit. These are the first to arrive at any sign of trouble, like the city watch rushing to a disturbance. Cells like macrophages and neutrophils are the foot soldiers ready to engulf and destroy any intruder they can identify as not self. They are like biological garbage trucks, consuming and digesting anything that looks foreign, from a splinter to a stray bacterium. The seed, having survived the chemical crucible of the stomach, would almost certainly be met by this innate immune response in the small intestine. The seed's testa, its hard outer shell, might offer some protection. But if the outer shell has cracked and the embryo within has begun to stir, its very existence would be a red flag. Macrophages would begin to gather, sending out chemical signals, cytokines that serve as an alarm bell, a call to arms for more soldiers. This would trigger a local inflammatory response. The tissue around the seed would become swollen and warm, filled with the body's fighting forces. This is a crucial ancient defense mechanism, a scorched earth policy designed to contain and destroy the threat before it can spread. But there is a deeper, more sophisticated branch of this army, the adaptive immune system. This is the Special Forces unit, the highly trained and specialized assassins of the biological world. The adaptive immune system learns from past battles. It creates a memory of every enemy it has ever encountered. The key players here are the lymphocytes, specifically T cells and B cells. Think of them as the spy masters and master assassins. A type of cell called a dendritic cell would likely be the one to find the seed. It would be a foreign object, a collection of proteins and carbohydrates that the body has never seen before. The dendritic cell would consume a piece of the seed, a plant protein for instance, and then travel to a lymph node. There, it would present this piece of the seed to the T cells, essentially showing them a mugshot of the enemy. The T cells would then be activated, beginning a process of creating a custom-made weapon specifically for this threat. One of the most fascinating facts about the adaptive immune system is its sheer scale and specificity. We can produce an almost infinite number of different antibodies, each one a perfect key for a specific molecular lock on a particular invader. This is why we get immunity after a sickness. The body has developed a specific army for that specific enemy and has kept a few soldiers on patrol just in case it ever returns. This system is a testament to the incredible, almost unimaginable power of natural selection, refining our defenses over eons. However, the seed presents a kind of challenge our immune system has never truly evolved to face. It's not a single-celled pathogen like a bacterium. It is a multicellular organism, a cluster of living cells with its own complex biology. The immune system is a master at fighting infectious agents, but it's not designed to fight a tiny living garden. And what if the seed in its earliest stages doesn't present a clear unified identity? What if its chemical profile is so different, so alien, that the immune system struggles to identify a target? This is where the biological mystery deepens. The body is a vigilant guardian, but it can only fight what it can see. A seed in its quiet, slow germination might be an enemy that moves too slowly, presents too few clear targets, and exists in a space, the delicate lining of the gut, that makes it difficult to engage in a full-scale assault without causing significant collateral damage to the host. This conflict also brings us to a philosophical crossroads. We are a collection of cells. We are an ecosystem, and yet we identify as a single cohesive self. The immune system is the ultimate expression of this idea of self, a ruthless and powerful mechanism for distinguishing between me and not me. But if the seed were to take root, if it were to begin to thrive, it would be a living, undeniable part of the not me existing within the me. It's a fundamental paradox. The immune system's job is to protect the integrity of the self. But what happens when the self is in a very real way divided? The body would be fighting itself not in the way of an autoimmune disease, but in a strange and novel way. It would be a battle for the very definition of what it means to be a single individual organism. And in the quiet, gentle unfolding of this story, we are forced to wonder, is our identity truly contained within our own skin? Or are we simply a temporary host for the restless, wandering ambition of life itself? The immune system, our ancient sentinel, stands watch. But this is a siege unlike any it has ever faced. The seed in its quiet, dark existence has no concept of the furious war being waged against it. Its existence is simple, its purpose singular. It needs to grow, and to grow, it needs nutrients. In the rich, warm, and perpetually flowing environment of the small intestine, it finds a biological banquet unlike any it could ever have encountered in the wild. This leads us to a fascinating comparison between the soil and the self, a meditation on what it means to be nurtured. On a purely chemical level, soil is a marvel of complexity. It is not just inert dirt. It is a living, breathing ecosystem, a finely tuned mixture of minerals, organic matter from decomposed plants and animals' water, and an incredible diversity of microorganisms. Each component plays a vital role in providing a plant with the essential elements it needs to live. There are macronutrients, like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which are the primary building blocks for stems, leaves, and roots. Then there are the micronutrients, like iron, zinc, and manganese, which are needed in much smaller quantities, but are no less crucial for the plant's health and survival. The relationship between a plant's roots and the soil is a beautiful, intricate dance of give and take, a silent and profound conversation. Our gut, the very landscape where our story unfolds, is a different kind of soil, but no less miraculous. The lining of the small intestine is a vast folded surface covered in tiny finger-like projections called villi, and even smaller microvilli. This incredible architecture is designed to maximize surface area for nutrient absorption. As the food we eat is broken down into its fundamental components, glucose from carbohydrates, amino acids from proteins, fatty acids from fats, These tiny villi act like millions of eager mouths, pulling these essential molecules into the bloodstream. This is the very lifeblood of our existence, the fuel that powers every cell, every thought, every movement. It's a system so efficient, so perfectly adapted to its purpose, that we rarely stop to marvel at its sheer genius. Now imagine the seed having successfully anchored itself to this living soil. The hard testa has cracked, and the tiny radical, the embryonic root, begins to emerge. It doesn't have the sophisticated root hairs of a mature plant, but its very presence, its very act of reaching, is an act of profound defiance. It begins to absorb the very same nutrients that our body needs. The glucose that was destined for our brain to power a thought, the amino acids meant to repair a muscle, the iron needed to create new red blood cells. All of these are now fair game for the silent ambition of the growing plant. It's a direct competition for resources, a biological tug-of-war for the very building blocks of life. The philosophical question here is a powerful one. What constitutes nourishment? We think of it as a one-way street, the food going into our bodies to sustain us. But the plant sees it differently. The plant is an alchemist, a quiet magician that takes simple inorganic elements and transforms them into the complex organic structures of life. It takes sunlight, water, and minerals from the soil and builds itself leaf by leaf, root by root. Within our bodies, the plant would be performing a different kind of alchemy. It would be taking the ready-made organic compounds our body has so painstakingly prepared and using them as its own fuel. It would be a kind of biological parasitism, a form of life that has found a way to bypass the hard work of photosynthesis and simply steal the finished product. This is a profound and unsettling thought. The very act of feeding ourselves could, in this impossible scenario, become the act of feeding our own quiet invader. This leads us to a strange and little-known scientific concept, the behavior of parasites that manipulate their hosts. Some parasites, like certain species of worms, can alter the behavior of their hosts to increase their own chances of survival and reproduction. For example, a parasitic flatworm can cause a host snail to have brightly colored pulsating tentacles, making it an easy target for birds. The bird then eats the snail, and the flatworm continues its life cycle within the bird. This is a real-world example of one organism hijacking the biology of another for its own gain. While a seed is not a parasite in the traditional sense, its presence within you would be a similar kind of hijacking, a manipulation of your body systems for its own purpose. Its growth would be a testament to a kind of relentless simple biological imperative that our complex, delicate human systems are ill-equipped to handle. The contrast between the nurturing earth and the internal chaos of this what-if scenario is a powerful metaphor. The earth is a vast giving mother, a system that has co-evolved with plants over billions of years. Our bodies are an equally vast but far more specific system. It is a home built for one, a kingdom with very clear rules about who belongs and who doesn't. The seed's attempt to grow in our bodies is not a natural symbiosis. It is an act of biological trespass. And as the rootlet, the taproot, begins its slow, unyielding descent into the tissues of the intestinal wall, it marks the point of no return. It is the moment where the quiet ambition of the seed turns into a physical, undeniable reality. And with every millimeter it grows, with every nutrient it siphons, it's not just a plant taking root. It's a profound, unanswerable question about the nature of a single, unified self taking root. The seed, our silent voyager, has now found a foothold. The molecular and cellular battle is not over, but the initial impossible barrier has been overcome. We have moved past the abstract clash of genetic codes and the silent war of the immune system. We are now entering a new phase of this strange tale, one that is physical and visceral. This is the story of the taproot's unyielding, slow descent. In the natural world, a taproot is a marvel of engineering. Think of the mighty oak tree, its vast network of branches and leaves held in place by a single powerful taproot that drives deep into the earth. Or the carrot, a humble vegetable that is itself a taproot, a storehouse of energy buried beneath the surface. The purpose of a taproot is simple: to anchor the plant and to reach deep for water and nutrients. Its growth is a slow, relentless, and powerful act. It moves by a process of cell division at its very tip, pushing its way through the soil with a kind of quiet, inexorable force. The root cap, a layer of protective cells at the end of the root, shields the delicate growing tip from damage, allowing it to navigate the unseen landscape of rocks, packed earth, and hidden waterways. The taproot is a symbol of stability, a testament to a life that is fundamentally rooted. Within the human body, this process would be profoundly different. The taproot of our imagined plant would not be growing into the forgiving, porous soil of the earth, but into the living, delicate tissue of the intestinal wall. This wall is not a uniform landscape. It is a complex, multi-layered structure of muscle nerves and blood vessels. The outermost layer is the serosa, a smooth membrane that protects the intestine. Beneath that are layers of muscle which are responsible for the rhythmic contractions of peristalsis that move food through our digestive system. And on the inside, the mucosa with its delicate villi is the nutrient-absorbing surface we spoke of earlier. The taproot's journey would be a navigation of these very different biological landscapes, a slow violation of the body's architectural integrity. The force of a growing root is astonishing. A germinating seed can exert enough pressure to crack pavement or push its way through a seemingly impenetrable stone. This pressure is generated by the process of osmosis, where water is drawn into the root's cells, causing them to swell and expand. This hydrostatic pressure, this simple, elegant force of nature, would be the engine of our plant's growth. It would be a relentless, unthinking pressure against the muscle and tissue of your body. Your body, in turn, would respond to this pressure. It would try to contain it. The muscles of the intestine, designed to contract and relax, would be constantly stimulated by this foreign object, leading to spasms and a profound localized pain. The nerves, which are the body's early warning system, would be screaming. The pain would be a constant low-level hum, a signal that something is fundamentally wrong. This brings us to one of the core principles of biology and physics: entropy. Entropy is, in simple terms, a measure of disorder. The second law of thermodynamics states that the total entropy of an isolated system can never decrease over time. In a very poetic and philosophical sense, all of life is a battle against entropy. A plant, by growing by organizing simple nutrients into a complex structure, is locally decreasing entropy. A human body, by maintaining its constant internal temperature and a complex web of chemical processes, is also locally decreasing entropy. But this requires a constant input of energy. When the taproot begins its work, it is a new source of organization within the body, but it is also a source of massive disorder. It is a new, uninvited order in a system that was already highly ordered. The energy drain it would create, the cellular chaos it would cause, would be a new kind of entropic force, a gradual slide into disorder for the body as a whole. This process of a plant growing within you also raises a profound question about the nature of our physical self. We think of our bodies as being solid, a complete and finite object with clear boundaries. Our skin is the boundary between me and not me. But the taproot's descent is a quiet, powerful challenge to this very idea. It is a slow, methodical erasure of the line between inner and outer worlds. It is a physical manifestation of the philosophical question we've been exploring. Is the body a sealed container, or is it a landscape that can be colonized? The answer in this impossible scenario is becoming clear. The body in its own way is a kind of soil, a kind of earth with all the vulnerability that implies, and there is a lesser-known scientific fact that lends a chilling kind of poetry to this. The nervous system, while a brilliant messenger, is not always perfectly precise. The brain can sometimes misinterpret signals. This is the principle behind phantom limb syndrome, where people who have had a limb amputated can still feel pain, itching, or other sensations in the missing limb. The brain is so used to receiving signals from that part of the body that it continues to produce a sensation even when the physical source is gone. What if in our story, the brain misinterprets the signals from the growing root? What if the feeling of a taproot growing through your internal tissue is interpreted not as a physical intrusion, but as something else entirely, a phantom sensation of a different kind? Perhaps a deep, unshakable itch that cannot be scratched, or a phantom feeling of fullness that can never be satisfied. The mind, in its attempt to make sense of the foreign signals, would be a landscape of its own, a garden of phantom sensations. The taproot's unyielding slow descent is a turning point. It is the moment where the abstract becomes concrete, where the metaphorical becomes literal. It is the physical proof that a new kind of life has taken hold. It is a slow, quiet, and deeply unsettling moment, a testament to the simple, patient power of a single determined seed. And as it pushes its way through the living tissue, a new kind of life, a new kind of existence, is slowly, silently, but undeniably being born. The taproot's slow descent was a physical act, a quiet declaration of life taking hold. But as it burrows deeper, and as the rest of the seed's genetic program begins to awaken, the conflict escalates from a physical war to a biochemical one. We move from the world of force and pressure to a world of molecules, hormones, and chemical signals. This is the symphony of biochemical disruption, a chaotic and deeply unsettling clash of two competing life forces. Our bodies are at their core magnificent chemical factories. Every single process, from the beating of our heart to the formation of a memory, is a result of a complex and beautifully choreographed series of chemical reactions. Our metabolism, the sum of all these reactions, is a delicate and finely tuned system. It's what allows us to convert the food we eat into energy, to repair our cells, and to maintain the perfect constant environment inside our bodies. This is the state of homeostasis, the biological equivalent of a calm sea. It's a state of perfect balance, maintained by a complex network of feedback loops and signaling molecules. A seed, however, is a different kind of chemical factory. It has its own set of rules, its own unique set of tools, and its own chemical messengers. The moment the taproot begins to grow, the plant's internal chemistry is activated. It begins to produce and release its own plant hormones, a class of powerful chemical compounds that are entirely foreign to the human body. One of the most important of these is auxin, a hormone that controls cell elongation and differentiation. In a plant, auxin tells a root to grow downward and a stem to grow upward. It is a fundamental instruction for a plant's entire life. But what happens when this instruction is released into a human body? The introduction of these plant hormones into your bloodstream would be like introducing a foreign language into the very conversation of your cells. Your cells would be receiving their normal instructions from your own hormones like insulin and adrenaline, while simultaneously being bathed in these new powerful plant signals. This would cause a profound confusion, a molecular stutter in the body's communication system. The plant's auxins might interfere with the chemical receptors on your own cells, blocking your body's signals, or even worse, causing your cells to misinterpret them. Your body's graceful dance of chemical communication would devolve into a chaotic mosh pit. This conflict would manifest in a variety of ways. Your body's metabolism would be thrown into disarray. The plant would be drawing on your body's glucose, its fatty acids, and its amino acids, not just for its own growth, but also to power its own metabolic processes. This is a direct biochemical act of theft. Your body, in its effort to maintain homeostasis, would try to compensate, leading to a host of symptoms. You would likely experience profound fatigue as your body's energy reserves are depleted. You might also feel a constant deep hunger as your brain, a complex organ that runs almost exclusively on glucose, senses a severe energy deficit. It would be a relentless, unquenchable biological thirst. A fascinating and little-known fact about the biological world is the existence of allelopathy. This is a biological phenomenon where one plant produces biochemicals that influence the growth, survival, and reproduction of other plants. Some plants, for instance, release chemicals into the soil that inhibit the growth of their competitors. This is a form of chemical warfare, a way for one species to assert its dominance over another. In our story, the plant inside you would not be fighting another plant, but you, the host. It's a very real possibility that the plant would produce its own unique chemicals to suppress your body's defenses or to simply make the internal environment more hospitable to its own growth. It would be a silent, insidious form of chemical warfare being waged inside your own body. This all leads to a profound philosophical question about the nature of life and its will to persist. The plant is not acting out of malice or conscious intent. Its actions are not driven by a will to dominate. Its actions are driven by a set of simple, ancient, and relentless instructions written in its DNA. It is simply doing what it is programmed to do: grow and live and reach for the light. And yet, this simple, innocent act is a direct assault on our own complex conscious existence. It's a clash between a relentless, simple biological imperative and a fragile, deeply interconnected system. This conflict is more than just a struggle for resources. It's a battle of identity at the most fundamental level. The plant's proteins, its enzymes, its hormones are all foreign to your body. Your immune system, despite its initial confusion, would likely begin to identify and attack these foreign molecules, leading to a constant, low-grade inflammatory response. It would be an internal fever, a symptom of the body's constant, desperate war against this new competing life force. The plant's genetic blueprint, its cosmic dance of cellular instruction, is now in direct conflict with your own. The very harmony that defines you as an individual, as a cohesive organism, is being torn apart, molecule by molecule, signal by signal. And in this quiet, relentless chaos, the plant's next stage of growth, the unyielding ascent of the stem, is being prepared. The taproot's descent has anchored the plant, and the biochemical battle has begun to rage. But now we turn our attention from the dark, hidden world of the roots to a new, upward striving ambition. This is the story of the stem's slow architectural ascent. In the natural world, a plant's stem is a marvel of biological architecture. It is a column of strength, a network of transportation, and a silent, unyielding monument to the plant's will to live. It is filled with two types of specialized tissue: the xylem, which acts like a one-way pipeline, carrying water and minerals from the roots to the rest of the plant, and the phloem, which transports the sugars and other nutrients created in the leaves to wherever they are needed. These two tissues are the lifeblood of the plant, the circulatory system that allows it to grow, to bloom, and to bear fruit. The stem is also the physical support system, the scaffolding that allows the plant to reach for the sky, to hold its leaves up to the sun, and to resist the forces of wind and gravity. Within the human body, this architectural ascent is not a slow, gentle push through open air. It is a forceful physical intrusion into a complex and delicate network of internal organs. The plant, following the ancient instructions encoded in its DNA, would begin to grow a stem. This is a process of cellular elongation and division, a quiet, stubborn expansion from a central point. The stem would be growing not in a straight line towards an imagined sun, but through the soft, pliable tissue of your gut. Its growth would be a slow, relentless pressure against the intestines, the stomach, and eventually, the internal organs that lie beyond. This introduces a core concept of physics and engineering, the problem of structural mechanics. Your body is a marvel of structural engineering. Your bones, your muscles, your organs, they are all arranged in a specific, elegant way that allows you to move, to breathe, and to live. The organs are not simply floating in a cavity. They are held in place by connective tissues, by other organs, and by the pressure of the abdominal wall. The growing stem of the plant would be a new, uninvited structural element in this delicate system. Its growth would exert pressure in a way your body is not designed to handle. Think of the way an expanding root can crack a concrete sidewalk. The pressure is not sudden and violent. It is slow, constant, and eventually overwhelming. The plant's stem would be doing the same but against the far more fragile living structures of your internal world. This constant expanding pressure would lead to a number of physical and neurological symptoms. The nerves in your abdomen would be constantly stimulated, leading to a relentless and growing pain. The brain, our brilliant interpreter of sensation, would be receiving a constant jarring signal that something is wrong. The body would likely begin to form scar tissue around the growing stem, a desperate attempt to contain and wall off the intruder. This is a process known as fibrosis, where the body lays down tough fibrous connective tissue to repair or isolate damaged areas. This is the body's last-ditch effort at containment, a biological form of quarantine. But the plant, with its relentless osmotic pressure, would likely continue to push through, breaking down and growing past these desperate defenses. A fascinating and eerie parallel can be found in the world of biology in a lesser-known condition called lithopedia, or stone baby. In rare cases, when a fetus dies and is too large to be reabsorbed by the body, the mother's body can calcify the fetus, essentially turning it into a protective stone shell. The body, in its effort to neutralize a foreign object it cannot expel, essentially mummifies it in place. In our story, the body would likely attempt a similar process against the growing plant, a desperate attempt to encase the stem in a tomb of calcified tissue. But unlike a dead fetus, the plant is a living, growing thing. It would be a battle between the slow, deliberate growth of life and the desperate hardening defenses of a body fighting for its own. The stem's slow architectural ascent is a profound violation of the self. It is a physical embodiment of the philosophical question we've been exploring since the beginning. Where does the self end and the other begin? The stem, in its relentless upward push, is literally creating a new physical boundary, a new kind of structure within the body's own. It is a literal division of the self. And as it grows, as it pushes past one organ and then another, it is a testament to the power of a simple biological imperative. It is not an act of malice. It is not a conscious invasion. It is simply a stem doing what a stem is born to do, reaching, growing, and seeking its own existence. And in its quiet, relentless pursuit, it is transforming you, the host, into something new and terrifyingly different. The stem's unyielding ascent is a powerful physical testament to life's ambition. But as it pushes upward, a new and profound paradox emerges, a question that challenges a cornerstone of what we know about plant life. How can a plant, a life form so fundamentally tied to sunlight, survive and grow in the absolute, lightless darkness of the human interior? This is the strange and unsettling story of photosynthesis in the dark. For most of us, the word plant conjures an image of green leaves bathed in sunlight. This is because the vast majority of plants rely on photosynthesis, the miraculous process where they use sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create their own food sugars and release oxygen as a byproduct. This process is powered by chlorophyll, the pigment that gives plants their green color. Chlorophyll is a molecular antenna, a brilliant piece of biological machinery designed to capture the energy of photons, the tiny packets of light that stream from the sun. Without light, there is no photosynthesis. Without photosynthesis, a plant cannot survive. This is a fundamental law of biology, a truth as old as life on Earth itself. But our plant, the tiny stubborn sprout inside you, is growing in a world of perpetual twilight, in the warm, dark, nutrient-rich interior of a living body. It has no access to the sun. It has no way to photosynthesize. So how is it getting the energy it needs to grow? This is where we must look to a lesser-known but equally fascinating process called chemosynthesis. While photosynthesis uses the energy from sunlight, chemosynthesis uses the energy from chemical reactions to create organic molecules. This process is found in some bacteria that live in extreme environments, such as the deep-sea hydrothermal vents where sunlight never reaches. These bacteria use the energy from chemicals like hydrogen sulfide, which spews from the vents, to power their lives. Our imagined plant, in its impossible environment, would be forced to adapt in a similar way. It would be a kind of biological anomaly, a plant that has abandoned its most fundamental process. Instead of reaching for the sun, it would be reaching for a different kind of energy. It would be using the body's own chemical resources, not just as building blocks, but as fuel. The plant would likely be using a form of chemosynthesis, drawing on the chemical potential energy of the organic molecules in your bloodstream. It would be a profound and unprecedented evolutionary leap, a plant that has become in a very real way an animal. It would be a carnivore of a different kind, a plant that is not rooted in the soil, but in the very flesh of its host, feeding on the very energy that was meant to sustain a human life. This leads us to a deeply philosophical and poetic question. What is light? We think of light in the physical sense, the electromagnetic radiation that streams from the sun. But in a more metaphorical sense, light is a source of life, of knowledge, of growth. A plant growing in the dark is a powerful metaphor for something that is surviving, against all odds, that is finding its own source of energy in a world where none should exist. The plant inside you is not reaching for a physical sun, but for the chemical energy that powers your very existence. It is in a very real way feeding on your light. It's a beautiful, terrifying, and profoundly unsettling thought. There is a fascinating and little-known truth in the world of plants that lends weight to this idea. Some plants, like the parasitic plant Indian pipe, have completely lost the ability to photosynthesize. They are ghostly white and live in dark forests, getting their energy not from the sun, but by siphoning nutrients from the roots of other trees, often through a symbiotic fungus. The Indian pipe is a plant that has given up the sun and has chosen a different path to survival, a parasitic path. In our story, our plant would be a new kind of Indian pipe, a biological ghost, living in the darkness and siphoning its life from a host, not a tree. It's a powerful image, a white pale shoot, growing in the internal darkness, a testament to life's incredible adaptability. The stem, as it grows, would also be a symbol of this paradox. It would not be green. It would be pale colorless, a ghostly white, or a faint, unhealthy yellow. It would be an anatomical oddity, a visual manifestation of a profound biological conflict. It is a plant, yes, but it is a plant that has forgotten its most fundamental nature. It is a plant that has been forced to become something else entirely. And in its strange chemosynthetic survival, it raises a question that scientists still debate. What is the fundamental difference between a plant and an animal? Is it photosynthesis? Is it movement? Or is it something deeper? A fundamental difference in their ambition. A difference in their very will to live. The plant inside you, in its beautiful, terrifying journey, is blurring those lines, forcing us to re-examine our most fundamental assumptions about the nature of life itself. The pale, unyielding stem pushes upward, a monument to a new kind of life. It's a profound violation of our physical self. But as this new life takes hold, a new and unsettling dynamic emerges. We have moved beyond the clash of genetic codes and the chaos of competing chemical signals. We are now in the bizarre and unsettling realm of the paradox of shared nourishment. This is where the host becomes the food source, where the very act of living becomes an act of slow, deliberate consumption. In the natural world, the concept of parasitism is a common one. It's a relationship between two species where one organism the parasite lives on, or in another organism the host, and derives its nourishment from it. The parasite benefits at the expense of the host, often causing harm and even death. We see this everywhere, from a mosquito feeding on our blood to a tapeworm living in our intestines. These are relationships of pure exploitation, a kind of biological theft. The parasite has evolved to be a master of this, with specialized structures and behaviors that allow it to bypass the host's defenses and tap directly into its resources. Our plant in this impossible scenario is now a parasite of the most profound kind. It is no longer just drawing on the body's nutrients for its growth. It is using the body itself as its primary food source. Its taproot and its branching secondary roots are now burrowing into the soft, nutrient-rich tissues of the intestinal wall, the abdominal cavity, and beyond. This is not just a passive absorption of nutrients from the bloodstream. It is a slow, methodical consumption of the very cells that make up your organs. The plant's roots would be secreting enzymes, powerful digestive chemicals that would break down the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates of your own tissues, turning them into a rich living soil for its own use. This is a kind of cannibalism, a form of life feeding on life, but in a way that is utterly alien and completely without malice. This biological reality forces us to confront a deep and ancient question about the nature of life. We as animals are consumers. We eat other organisms, be they plants or other animals, to survive. This is the great chain of being, a cycle of life and death. That is the engine of our world. But what happens when we, the consumers, become the consumed? What happens when a different kind of life, a life form so fundamentally opposite to our own, begins to feed on us? This is a question that pushes us to the very edge of our understanding of existence. The plant is not a carnivore in the traditional sense, but its actions are functionally the same. It is a biological predator, a silent, unthinking hunter that has found the most abundant and easy-to-reach prey imaginable, its own host. A fascinating and little-known example of a plant that blurs this line can be found in the Venus flytrap, a carnivorous plant. It has evolved to lure and trap insects, and then, using its own digestive enzymes, breaks down the insect's body to absorb its nutrients. The Venus flytrap is a plant that has learned to be a consumer. Our plant, in a reverse and far more unsettling evolution, has become a plant that consumes its own host. It has taken the role of the Venus flytrap, but the prey is you. It's a profound and unsettling reversal of roles. This shared nourishment, this bizarre symbiosis of parasite and host, would lead to an increasingly rapid decline in your health. The growing plant would be a constant, unquenchable drain on your body's resources. You would be experiencing profound cachexia, or wasting syndrome, a condition characterized by a loss of body weight, muscle atrophy, and severe weakness. Your body would be fighting a losing battle, a war of attrition against a foe that is literally feeding on your very substance. You would feel a constant deep emptiness, a profound and unshakable hunger that could never be satisfied. Every meal you eat would be a meal for two, with the second guest taking the lion's share. The philosophical implication of this is profound. We are not just our consciousness, our thoughts, our memories. We are also our bodies, this physical vessel that carries us through the world. But what happens when that vessel is no longer entirely your own? What happens when a part of it, a growing and increasingly dominant part, is dedicated to the survival of another? The plant's growth is a gradual, silent erasure of your physical self, a slow transformation of your body from a home for a human consciousness into a garden for a foreign life. The paradox of shared nourishment is not just a biological reality. It is a profound and terrifying question about the very nature of our physical identity, a question about where our self ends and where this strange, new, and consuming life begins. The plant's quiet, unrelenting growth has transformed the physical landscape of your body. The taproot is anchored, the stem is ascending, and a new biological form of consumption has begun. But as these physical changes unfold, an equally profound and unsettling drama is playing out in the dark theater of the mind. This is the story of the mind's garden of phantom sensations, where the brain, our great interpreter of reality, grapples with a new, impossible truth. The brain is an incredible organ, a 3-pound universe of tangled neurons and electrical impulses that creates the world we know. It doesn't directly experience reality. It interprets signals from our senses and builds a model of the world inside our heads. It's a master storyteller, a brilliant composer of sensation, emotion, and thought. A touch on your hand is not the feeling itself, but an electrical signal sent from the nerves in your skin to your brain, which then interprets that signal as the sensation of touch. This is a crucial concept to understand because the brain can sometimes get the story wrong. We've all experienced a simple version of this when we've had a limb fall asleep. The tingling pins and needles sensation is not caused by a physical touch, but by the nerves being momentarily starved of oxygen and sending confused, chaotic signals to the brain. The brain, in its attempt to make sense of this chaos, creates the bizarre sensation of tingling. A more profound example is phantom limb syndrome, a truly mysterious and poignant neurological phenomenon. People who have had a limb amputated often report feeling pain itching, or even the movement of the missing limb. The brain, having spent a lifetime receiving signals from that limb, continues to project a sensory map onto a body part that is no longer there. It is the mind creating its own reality, overriding the physical truth of the world. Now imagine our scenario. The growing plant inside you is not just a physical presence. It's a new source of sensory information, a new kind of signal being sent to the brain. Nerves are being stretched, pushed, and constantly stimulated by the expanding stem and the burrowing roots. The brain, which has no context, no blueprint, and no previous experience with a plant growing inside the body, would struggle to interpret these signals. It wouldn't register as a simple ache or a hunger pang. It would be something new, something alien, something profoundly unsettling. The brain's storytelling mechanism would be thrown into disarray. What kind of sensations would the mind conjure from this chaos? It wouldn't be a simple pain, but perhaps a deep, unshakable ache that feels both internal and external at the same time. Maybe it would feel like a constant, slow pressure, a phantom weight that you can't relieve. Or perhaps, in a more poetic and unsettling twist, the brain would interpret the growth as a kind of internal flourishing. The feeling of the roots burrowing might be mistaken for a deep, satisfying stretch. The sensation of the stem ascending could be a phantom feeling of internal growth, of being taller, of expanding. The mind, in its desperate search for a narrative, might create a false sense of well-being, a peaceful illusion that masks the physical reality of a parasitic invasion. This raises an interesting and terrifying question about the nature of our conscious experience. Is our reality a reliable reflection of the physical world? Or is it a story our brain tells us? If the brain can create the sensation of a limb that is no longer there, what kind of sensations could it create from a life that is there but shouldn't be? The plant, in its silent growth, is not just changing the body. It is also changing the mind, forcing it to confront a new kind of existence, a new kind of truth. The mind, in its attempt to make sense of the foreign signals, would be a landscape of its own, a garden of phantom sensations where the line between internal and external, between reality and illusion, is completely blurred. And there is a philosophical mystery here that touches on the very nature of consciousness. We feel like a unified I, a single conscious being. But we know from neuroscience that consciousness is not located in a single place. It's a product of the entire brain, a collaboration of countless different processes. What happens when a new, non-human, and non-conscious life form begins to send its own signals into that intricate network? Does the consciousness of the host begin to change? Do the new signals from the plant become a part of the host's own conscious experience? The answer, of course, is a mystery, a question that lies at the very edge of our understanding. But in this quiet unfolding story, we are forced to wonder if the plant in its silent growth is not just a physical invader, but a quiet co-author of our very consciousness, a new, strange, and unsettling voice in the theater of the mind. The mind has begun its silent, surreal struggle to interpret a new reality. But the physical world, in its blunt and unyielding truth, is about to make its most dramatic statement yet. The pale, ghost-like stem, a monument to a life that has forgotten the sun, has been growing. It has navigated the delicate architecture of your internal world, pushing past organs and through tissues, and now its journey is about to come to a startling and poetic conclusion. This is the moment the leaves unfurl a fragile final breath, a quiet act of emergence that shatters the boundary between your inner and outer worlds. In the natural world, a plant's leaves are its lungs, its solar panels, its engines of creation. They are a marvel of biological design, intricate networks of veins and chlorophyll-filled cells, all designed for one purpose: to capture the energy of the sun and the carbon dioxide from the air. The unfurling of a leaf is a quiet, beautiful moment of birth, a soft, deliberate act of opening to the world. It's the plant's declaration of existence, its statement that it is ready to breathe, to live, and to create. This is the essence of a plant's journey from the dark, silent earth to the vibrant, life-giving light. But our plant's journey is different, a journey of perversion and paradox. It has grown in the darkness, fueled by a stolen light, and now the stem, having pushed relentlessly outward, has finally reached the surface. It would have to break through the final, most crucial barrier: your skin. The skin is the body's ultimate boundary, the protective layer that holds our inner cosmos together and separates us from the chaos of the outside world. It is our physical definition of self, a clear and undeniable line between me and not me. The breakthrough of the stem is not just a physical event. It is a profound and terrifying violation of that line. The process would be slow and subtle at first, a tiny, almost unnoticeable bulge beneath the skin, perhaps on the abdomen or the chest, wherever the stem has found its path. The skin, a tough and resilient organ, would be stretched and thinned by the relentless internal pressure. Your body would try to heal, to repair the damage, but the constant pressure from within would make that impossible. The skin would become inflamed red and tender, a roadmap of the impending breach. And then at some moment, perhaps a quiet one, a tiny pale tip would break through. This would be a moment of profound psychological and physical trauma. The sight of a tiny colorless plant emerging from your own skin is an image of body horror that defies our deepest held assumptions about ourselves. It is a visual representation of the truth we have been exploring all along, that a part of us is no longer our own. The leaves, when they emerge, would not be green. They would be a sickly white or faint ethereal yellow, a testament to their life in the dark. They would be pale ghosts, reaching not for the sun, but for the air, for the carbon dioxide they have been so starved for. This is a crucial scientific detail. The plant, having survived on chemosynthesis, would now, in its final moments of emergence, be attempting to return to its original photosynthetic nature. It would be a frantic, desperate effort to reconnect with the world it was born to inhabit. There is a fascinating and poignant concept in biology known as etiolation, where a plant that has been grown in the dark will become pale and spindly, with long, weak stems and small, unformed leaves. This is the plant's desperate attempt to reach for light, an ancient and powerful drive encoded in its DNA. Our plant, having grown in the dark, would be a form of living etiolation, a biological testament to a life lived in a profoundly unnatural environment. The leaves, in their pale, ghostly glory, would be the final visible symptom of this silent struggle. This moment of emergence is a philosophical climax. It forces us to confront the fact that our inner and outer worlds are not as separate as we would like to believe. The plant, in its slow, deliberate growth, has blurred the lines of our physical and psychological boundaries. It has turned our internal world into a grotesque parody of an external one. And the pale, unfurling leaves, in their fragile beauty, are a visual symbol of this truth. They are a final, visible declaration that the body, this kingdom we once thought was entirely our own, has been colonized. And in their final breath, in their first taste of the air, they are a silent, unblinking witness to the profound, terrifying, and strangely beautiful truth that life in all its forms will find a way to grow, no matter the cost and no matter the landscape. The pale leaves have broken through a physical manifestation of a profound internal change. We have watched a single seed's quiet ambition transform from a molecular clash to a physical violation. But as the plant emerges into the world, we are faced with a new and more cosmic question. What does this mean for the very flow of time itself? This is the story of the twin timelines of a shared existence, a reflection on the contrasting rhythms of life for a human and a plant. We as humans live on a quick compressed timeline. Our lives are a fleeting 70, 80, maybe 100 years. Our moments are marked by the frantic pace of a beating heart, by the quick flash of thought, by the constant, relentless forward motion of our daily lives. We are driven by a consciousness that is always looking forward or back, always in a state of becoming. Our very existence is a testament to change, to growth, to a rapid and relentless evolution. This is our truth, our temporal reality. A plant, however, lives on a different kind of timeline. A plant lives on an ancient, slow, and almost eternal timescale. A tree can live for hundreds, even thousands of years, a silent witness to the rise and fall of civilizations. The growth of a single leaf, the unfolding of a single flower is a slow, deliberate process, a quiet and patient act that is in stark contrast to the frantic pace of our own lives. A plant is a testament to stillness, to patience, to a different kind of existence that is rooted in the moment, in the slow and steady rhythm of the seasons. This brings us back to the scientific principle of entropy, which we touched on before. Entropy, the measure of disorder, is a powerful force. Everything in the universe, left to its own devices, tends toward a state of increasing disorder. Life, in its magnificent complexity, is a temporary local reversal of this trend. But it is a reversal that requires a constant input of energy. The human body is a machine that is constantly fighting entropy, constantly working to maintain its order and its balance. But it is a losing battle. Eventually the fight must end, and the body will return to a state of disorder, to dust. Our timeline, in a very real way, is a quick, frantic battle against the inevitable. The plant, however, has a different relationship with entropy. A plant, by its very nature, is a master of patient organization. It takes the simple, disorganized elements of the earth, water, minerals, and air, and with the help of sunlight, organizes them into a complex living structure. A plant is a kind of living paradox, a physical embodiment of order that is both fighting entropy and, in a way, embracing it. When a plant dies, it returns to the earth, becoming food for new life. It is a graceful, slow, and cyclical process, a kind of eternal return that is in stark contrast to the human sense of a single, linear life. The plant inside you, our strange and unsettling intruder, is a beautiful and terrifying bridge between these two timelines. It is a life that began in the quick, frantic timeline of a human body, a world of rapid decay and relentless change. But it is a life that is governed by the slow, patient, and eternal laws of the plant kingdom. The moment it breaks through the skin and unfurls its pale leaves, it is a statement that a different kind of time has entered your world. Its pale leaves are a sign that it has lived its life in a place where time is measured, not in heartbeats, but in the slow, relentless push of a root and the patient, deliberate unfolding of a stem. This is a profound and unanswerable mystery that touches on the nature of reality itself. Is time a single linear flow, or is it a tapestry woven with countless different threads, each with its own unique rhythm and pattern? The plant inside you is a new thread in your tapestry, a new rhythm in your song. It is a testament to the idea that our personal timelines are not as simple and self-contained as we would like to believe. The plant, in its very existence, is a quiet, living question about the nature of time. A question that forces us to wonder if we are not just living our own lives, but also hosting a different kind of time, a different kind of eternity within our very being. The twin timelines of human and plant have now collided, creating a shared existence that is both profound and temporary. The pale leaves, a final fragile declaration, have emerged into the outside world. But the story of this strange life is not yet over. In the grand cyclical theater of nature, every life is a preparation for the next. This is the story of the seed's legacy, a second chance at life and the quiet, inevitable end of the host. In the natural world, death is not an end. It is a transformation. It is the beginning of a new cycle. When a plant withers and dies, it returns to the earth, its organic matter decomposing into a rich living soil that will nourish new plants. When an animal dies, its body also becomes a source of life, a feast for scavengers, and a nutrient-rich foundation for the very plants that it once consumed. This is the great circle of life, a cosmic dance of give and take of life, feeding on death to create new life. This is the ultimate expression of conservation of mass, a fundamental law of physics, which states that matter cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. The human body in this context is no different. It is a vast, complex collection of molecules and elements that upon death will return to the earth and become part of a new cycle. But in our story, the human body is not just a collection of molecules. It is a living, breathing landscape that has been colonized by a new kind of life. The plant, in its quiet, relentless growth, has been using the host as a temporary vessel, a living, breathing garden bed. And as the host's body weakened by the constant drain of nutrients and the relentless pressure of the growing plant begins to fail, the plant's final and most profound ambition is realized. The plant in its final stages of life would begin to produce its own flowers, its own fruit, its own seeds. This is the ultimate purpose of every plant: to reproduce, to create new life, to pass on its genetic blueprint to the next generation. The flowers, if they were to bloom, would be strange and ethereal, their petals a sickly white or a faint yellow, a final poetic reminder of their life in the dark. The fruit, if it were to form, would be a new kind of biological paradox, a fruit that is born not of the sun and the soil, but of the flesh and the blood of its host. And within this fruit, a new generation of seeds would be formed. These seeds would not be like the original seed. They would be a testament to their strange, shared existence. They would be a new kind of life, a hybrid of human and plant, a genetic echo of their extraordinary journey. These seeds would be designed to survive and to thrive in a world that is no longer just the earth and the sun, but also the memory of a human life. They would be a living biological legacy of a profound and impossible truth: the death of the host. The final act in this quiet tragedy is not an end for the plant. It is a liberation. As the body of the host returns to the earth, the plant with its new seeds would be free. The seeds, having been formed in the living soil of the host, would be perfectly prepared to germinate in the earth, to find new life in the soil that was once a person. The plant's legacy is a new kind of life, a second chance, a new beginning that is born of a profound and impossible end. This raises a deep and timeless philosophical question about legacy and memory. We as humans believe that our legacy lies in our children, in our work, in the memories we leave behind. But what happens when our legacy is something else entirely? What happens when our body becomes a vessel for a new kind of life, a new kind of memory? The plant's seeds are a living memory of a shared existence, a biological echo of a life that was both human and plant. They are a testament to the idea that our lives are not our own, that we are all in a very real way a part of a larger, more ancient, and more eternal story. And in the quiet unfolding of this story, we are forced to wonder if our own bodies, our own lives, are not just a story of our own making, but a living, breathing, and temporary chapter in the grand, unending narrative of life itself. We have witnessed the profound and impossible transformation of a human body into a garden, and the eventual creation of a new kind of life. But as we step back from the direct physical events of this story, a quieter, more philosophical question remains. What is the legacy of this shared existence? This is the echo in the garden, a whispered memory that lives on in the silence of the plant world. We as humans tend to think of memory in terms of conscious recall. We remember a face, a place, a moment in time. Our memories are stored in the intricate network of our brains, a personal library of our lived experience. But in a more poetic and perhaps more profound sense, memory exists in other forms. The scar on an old tree is a memory of a past storm. The fossil of a dinosaur is a memory of an ancient world. Memory is not just a mental construct. It can be an embedded physical truth. Our plant, in its strange journey, has absorbed the very essence of its host. It has fed on the building blocks of a human life. It has grown in the environment of a human body, a world filled with the chemical signals of a human existence. In a very real and biological way, the plant has become a living, breathing memory of its host. The molecules that once formed your blood, your muscle, your very thoughts, are now a part of the plant's structure. They are woven into its roots, its stem, its leaves, and its new seeds. The plant in its very being is a physical embodiment of a life that was both human and plant. This leads us to a fascinating and little-known scientific concept, epigenetics. Epigenetics is the study of how behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work. Unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes are reversible and do not change your DNA sequence, but they can change how your body reads a DNA sequence. In our story, the plant has lived its entire life in an environment that is profoundly different from the one it was evolved for. It is a world of constant warmth, a world with a different chemical composition, a world with a different kind of biological rhythm. It is a life lived in the shadow of a human consciousness. It is entirely possible in this impossible scenario that this unique environment has caused epigenetic changes in the plant's genes. These changes would be a kind of biological memory, a silent echo of its shared existence with a human host. These memories would then be passed on to the new seeds, a quiet whisper from a life that was once lived in the dark. This is a beautiful and haunting idea. It means that the memory of your life, in a way, lives on in the plant. It lives on not as a conscious thought, not as a nostalgic feeling, but as a subtle change in a plant's DNA, a slight alteration in the way a gene is expressed. The plant and its descendants would be a living, breathing testament to a life that was lived, a life that was consumed, and a life that became a new kind of life. The echo in the garden is a powerful metaphor for our interconnectedness. We as humans tend to think of ourselves as separate and distinct from the natural world. We see a clear line between the human and the non-human. But this story forces us to question that line. The plant, in its consumption of a human body, has blurred the boundaries. It has shown us that the division between life forms is not as absolute as we would like to believe. We are all made of the same stardust, the same fundamental elements. We are all part of the same great unending cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And in the silence of a garden, in the quiet rustle of leaves, a new kind of memory is being whispered. It is the memory of a human life lived and consumed and transformed into a new kind of existence. It is a testament to the idea that nothing is ever truly lost, that everything is simply changed. The plant in its stillness is a keeper of this memory, a silent witness to a story that was both human and planned a story that was both an ending and a new quiet beginning. We have journeyed through the dark and surreal landscape of an impossible truth. We have watched a single unassuming seed transform a human body into a strange and quiet garden, and in doing so, it has transformed our very understanding of life, death, and identity. We have explored the clash of genetic blueprints, the war of the immune system, the paradox of shared nourishment, and the twin timelines of a shared existence. Now, in this final section, we weave all these threads together, not for a grand conclusion, but for a final, gentle bloom of understanding. The story began with a simple question: what if a seed could grow in your stomach? And the answer, as we have seen, is not a simple one. It is a story that defies the easy categories of science and philosophy. It is not just a tale of biological horror, but a meditation on the profound and beautiful resilience of life. The seed, in its quiet, relentless ambition, is a testament to the idea that life will find a way no matter the landscape. no matter the odds. It is a reminder that the will to live is a force more powerful and more fundamental than we can possibly imagine. But this is also a story about you, the host. Your body, this ancient and complex kingdom, was the stage for this impossible drama. In a way, the story is a celebration of your own biological marvel. We have marveled at the brilliance of your immune system, the delicate balance of your hormones, and the astonishing ability of your brain to interpret and create reality. Your body, in its attempt to fight this impossible intrusion, was a testament to the sheer elegance and power of millions of years of evolution. The struggle was not a failure. It was a profound and beautiful expression of your own will to exist a final magnificent battle against a new and uninvited kind of life. The final gentle bloom of understanding, then, is this: we are not separate. The line between the human and the non-human is not as solid as we would like to believe. We are all part of the same grand cyclical story. The molecules that make up your body were once part of the earth, part of a plant, part of a star that died billions of years ago. We are all in a very real way made of the same stuff. And the plant, in its strange parasitic life, is a powerful and unsettling reminder of this truth. It is a testament to the idea that we are all interconnected, all part of a single unending narrative of life, death, and transformation. This is a story that forces us to re-examine our relationship with the natural world, to see a plant not just as a silent, static thing, but as a being with its own ambition, its own timeline, and its own deep, profound will to live. It is a story that forces us to see our own bodies not as a sealed, isolated kingdom, but as a temporary vessel, a living, breathing landscape that is part of a larger, more ancient story. The seed, in its quiet ambition, did not just take a physical journey. It took a philosophical one. It took us on a journey into the heart of what it means to be alive, what it means to be an individual, and what it means to be a part of a larger, more profound whole. And in this journey, it has left behind a new kind of memory, a new kind of echo in the garden of our understanding. And now, as our story comes to an end, I'd like to gently ask you to bring your awareness back to the room where you are, to feel the softness of the bed beneath you, the gentle flow of the air on your skin. Listen to the quiet sounds of the world outside your window. The story is over, the impossible journey is done. The gentle, slow rhythm of a plant's life and the frantic, beautiful pace of a human life have both found their peaceful conclusion. I'd like to gently ask one last time, where is the place you're staying now? The time in that place at this very moment, how is it flowing? Just feel the moment without needing to answer, without needing to do anything at all. Just be. It's a wonderful thing to simply be here now in this quiet, shared space. Thank you for joining me on this strange journey. It is a great honor to share these quiet moments with you. Sleep well, my companion. Wherever and whenever you are, sweet dreams.